All right, we just got done seeing Suicide Squad Extended Edition, which was released on the 13th. We had previously seen, or at least Guntik and I had previously seen the theatrical cut, and this was his Guardian's introduction to the movie at all, so he didn't even get to see the theatrical cut. And well, let's start with you. You haven't seen the movie in any iteration but this.
Nope.
What was your impression?
I just saw the rating for Rotten Tomatoes, and that's complete garbage.
26%, right? Rotten Tomatoes.
That's what it says here.
Yeah.
Retarded.
I agree with that. It's ridiculous. I don't understand. We just saw Doctor Strange a few days ago, yesterday, in fact, and
And more on that later.
we can't understand. I love Doctor Strange, despite the horrible MCU comedy being a big problem in that. I love the MCU comedy, but and there it didn't fit. But I don't understand how a movie like that can deviate so much from the source material, and fans blow it like a schlong.
91%.
But then Suicide Squad. I'm not comparing the two. Doctor Strange is a superior movie, but in my opinion, but uh, you know, a lot of the issues that people have with these movies are, oh, it deviates too far from this. That sure as hell was a problem with Man of Steel. Oh, it deviates too far from the material. And in case of Superman versus Batman, the problem was, oh, they blended too much of the material together. There's always an issue with this, with that's ridiculous complaint, and that was, ultimately what a lot of people, not the critics that gave the ultimate 26%. Some of their complaints can be legitimized in some form or another, but the fans' criticisms came in that vein. But let's talk about the critics' response to it, which was more in terms of tone, style, structure, all that stuff. So one of the big things was the music. It was either you like it or you hate it.
I didn't like some of the music too much, but it kind of fit the tone of the movie. That's just my opinion.
That's the thing. It's like
it's supposed to match with the tone of what you're watching, and I get it. I just didn't appreciate the music.
The selections.
Yeah, that's just my personal, because the music kind of sucks. I don't really like that kind of music, but it fit the actual narrative
it's full
of the
classics. But I guess if you don't like the music, then
exactly. That was my problem with that, but it wasn't really like a legitimate complaint. It's just my personal opinion about the music itself.
Yeah.
It fit the actual storytelling of what you're seeing, so that kind of makes sense.
Considering how much they had to set up all these characters.
Yeah,
they did it in a way that was
something
interesting.
That people ignore about the music selections early on in the picture. It's that they serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Each selection at the beginning, as we're getting introduced to these characters, quick fire, because they're packed in this movie, and mind you, with a purpose, not just because they're packing stuff in here, but you have to get to know these characters. And some people go, "Oh, look, DC has to point out their qualities by having these titles." That was a stylistic choice.
That was definitely a stylistic.
I mean, come on, look at the movie, the way it's cut, the way it's paced, the way it's that. The title cards with the character's name and some attributes were obviously a stylistic choice.
We've seen
Ditto,
it before.
Which I personally like, by the way. I actually like that kind of those stats.
The thing about the music and the way it's cut and those title cards is that it instantly gives you the tone of this movie.
It gives you the tone.
It's not so much. Well, that's what I was getting to, was that it gives you a direct feeling and mood and tone and expression of that specific character. We associate these hits so much with a certain feeling that when they come on, that character. And now I know fanboys are like, well, we don't need to know that character. Yes, but there's an audience out there that needs to know these characters immediately.
That's a big thing that people seem to ignore.
Yeah, that there's an entire audience that's not familiar with these characters.
A lot of people that don't know it,
Yeah. So there's that for the music. Whether you liked it or not, you knew that it served a purpose.
Yeah.
Likewise, I liked all the selections. I mean, like you said, most of them are classics.
Yeah.
Now, this is my first time viewing this film, and one thing that I noticed right away is that they did a lot of like story build up and character development within throughout the entire movie.
Now,
at first, I kind of had a problem with it, but then as it continued throughout the entire movie, I kind of liked that aspect of the film. It kind of gave you more of a in-depth expose into each character, essentially, and I kind of like that going further into the film.
I would say a lot of that was cut from the theatrical.
Like, and I can see how people can be mad at that or be annoyed by that because there was a lot of exposition that was out there, and I kind of figured that they had to cut some of it down, which would have not made sense. Kind of like the Batman vs Superman edition.
There's a few things that you're just kind of like, why would you cut that?
I didn't
have
the
Harley stuff.
I didn't have that except for the Joker Harley stuff. The rest of the stuff was disposable. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like it in there. I prefer it in there.
No, okay,
but it was just.
So I will say that it's not as the stuff they added is not as important as like Batman versus Superman's cut stuff, but it does kind of add to it a little.
Yeah, all it does.
It's more like building like there's more just of them talking and shit, which ends up helping you
relate
to them.
Yeah, relate to the character. Yeah, that's really all. Anything in the extended edition that has been added, with the exception of the Harley Joker stuff, is not really substantive.
But it doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't hurt. In fact, it kind of
helps.
Fleshes out these characters a little more, gives you a feeling for them. And really, this movie is about feeling. It's not so much about this solid structure, but it's about feeling for these characters that really we shouldn't be feeling for, and relating to them. And I think the movie communicates that well. Now, like you guys mentioned, or like you mentioned and you noticed, is a lot of people had a problem with the pace of the movie, which you either get into right away or you don't. Now, I've seen a billion movies, and I can get into a movie right away for the way it's shot and it's intended. So it's not a problem to me, but a lot of people, and I can understand that.
I could see, this is one. I would say that this is one that I can see why some people wouldn't like, because of how heavily stylized it is.
Yes.
And the pacing is very stylized, but it's cool, I guess. Like I can see why people wouldn't like it, but it's not like it's.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because, like you say, the tone was set right away. You know, the title cards.
It's really fast.
It was kind of like kind of like a quick fire kind of thing. It's funny because I noticed that at the beginning the tone was there. This is like a lighthearted kind of affair essentially. But then as it got deeper into the plot and up to the final climax of the movie, it became really like serious, and like things were actually things actually meant something, and you actually feel for these characters, and they had a lot of what I call Zack Snyder slow motion toward the end of it. And although it's different from what we were established, I like that aspect, that it actually gave you something to root for, essentially.
Yeah, because there's like substance as to why this is happening.
And the development of the characters helped the climax of it, where something's at stake and they're going to die, essentially. That's what helped drive the film for me. I was actually on the edge of my seat watching the climax of it. And I really regret not watching it in theaters because it was pretty awesome.
I think that just reminded me of a point that I wanted to bring up, and it's how... one of the big complaints against the Marvel Universe, or one of the few complaints against the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that it's pretty much across the board. There's like a I wouldn't say monotony, but there definitely is a mood and style that just goes across all the films.
It's like it's kind of like it feels like it's almost like a pamphlet they give you, like you have to hit these beats when you're making one of these movies.
Yeah, like
I'm not even talking in terms of, but yes, you're absolutely right in terms of plot and character and all that stuff. Yes, but I'm talking visually, aesthetically, and all that stuff. So a lot of people bring that up about the MCU, and I think, they go, wow, they need a little change here, and I think Doctor Strange introduced that substantially, because it's such a visual movie and so different in that sense. But I think if we look at the DC Universe movies, we can see what that would give us, because Zack Snyder's style is Zack Snyder's style. And here we have a movie that takes place in the same exact universe, but it's stylized in such a way that it does not look like that other movie or that other movie.
But what they do well is that despite them being different, like visually, they still feel like they're in the same world.
Oh yeah, well absolutely. By default of that of the context they're placed in, they do. But now we got a taste of that.
That's what I'm saying. Like Marvel should take a cue from that. Like, hey, we can make stuff that looks different, but it feels like it fits together.
Yeah, people seem to be calling for that. I agree. I don't think they should deviate so much, because now the Marvel formula is formula, and people expect that now. But they should deviate like they did with Strange And even Thor, who the aesthetic design was vastly different, but that's because it had to, because it takes place in an entirely different place.
Well, we can talk more about that later on in another video.
But here we have an example of that in the DC universe. So Marvel fans, if you're wanting that, and I should say Marvel fans that hate the DC movies, if you're wanting that, you're getting it in the DC movies. You just don't like it. So anyway, pacing was a big issue. He and I, when he apparently all agree that maybe
it's something that if you can't get used to, then it probably will be a problem.
Yeah, but
for the people who can get used to it, it's cool.
Yeah,
like it fits into the movie, which is something I want to say about the Joker too. You know, this is a very different Joker, but he fits in the movie.
Yes, he fits in this universe. So that's a good segue. The Joker was another hit or miss for the people. They either liked him or they did. I should say the Joker and the Joker plot. I think just to start off, that there's two big things that might have turned people off on him. One, they wanted a Joker movie or a Joker-centric movie.
Yeah.
That this was not that movie.
No.
And two, how the Joker was presented by Jared Leto. That's the one that I can get behind people not liking. Now, I actually enjoy Jared Leto. I don't say I loved his portrayal. Of course, the classic portrayal for me is Heath Ledger. Then again, I'm the guy that doesn't like Jack Nicholson's portrayal. I think it's garbage. But, you know, I enjoyed Jared Leto's portrayal because it was different and it gave something new. I wouldn't say it was awesome. I can see... I can hope that there will be a development of that later.
Yeah, the thing is, like, if you want to judge this Joker, this is probably not the movie to do it in, because he's in it so little.
Yeah.
But he definitely does bring something different, and that is the character to do it with, because Joker, you can play him any way, really.
Yeah.
You know, technically, Ledger was a complete departure of the character. You know what I mean?
In some ways, yeah.
In some ways, it's completely different, you know? So the fact that he took it this way is interesting, but it is one that if you're not into it, you probably won't like it at all.
And people that got excited, I know I got excited when David Ayer was announced as the director and writer. And why are you surprised that he put in a gangster Joker? I mean, what the fuck? Have you not seen his movies? They're either going to be corrupt cops or weird gangster types. I mean, what the fuck what movies are you watching of David Ayer's? I mean, this is, of course, a much lighter affair than his normal stuff, but what the fuck were you expecting? Were you expecting Jack Nicholson? I don't understand what the hell people were expecting.
People were expecting something from the comic, and they didn't get that, and they're pissed about it. Now,
no, because they got that with Batman vs. Superman, and they cried about it.
Well, again, people are not the brightest bulbs in the shed there. Yeah. Now,
people were expecting a Marvel movie. That's what it was.
Well, the thing about these points that we're trying to hit is essentially... you can deviate from the source material as long as it's entertaining and fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I think this Joker did. It was a complete departure from what you're used to, and I think Heath Ledger set the bar really high with his portrayal.
And it wouldn't have been smart
it wouldn't have been to just emulate that kind of style.
Yeah,
exactly.
I appreciate the fact that they went a different route with this Joker.
Yeah.
And it worked for me. It worked. I mean, as long as you're crazy, as long as you're there. I mean, it really was a decent portrayal of a crazy, psychotic character, essentially. So,
and I think, despite it not being a Joker movie, the extended edition does add a lot of Joker, but not so much that it becomes a Joker movie, not so much that it's obtrusive to the plot, but it does it to elevate Harley's motivations and her emotions and all that stuff.
See, that stuff I don't think should have been cut.
Yeah, I agree. The Joker Harley stuff should have stayed in. Yeah. Some of the other stuff, expendable. I can understand those cuts. I'm glad we have them now back in the film. But you're right. The Harley Joker stuff should have stayed in there.
For the most part, in the extended, that's really the only thing that shouldn't have been cut at all.
That you notice should have been in the original plot.
Because, the original plot. They don't have all those flashbacks with Harley. They have one of them.
See,
and that's kind of important.
And that's kind of important because I mean, you understand her motivations more, like you say, her emotions, the drive of the character, the drive of her plot. Essentially,
just makes her sympathetic,
and it makes her more reasonable. Well, in your mind, you're like, okay, I can see why she's doing it now. Yeah. I can see why she has these motivations now, and that really would have been a hindrance to me if I would have seen the theatrical cut.
And I think also because of that plot line, her what she ultimately does to defeat the villain is elevated in importance, and her relation to Katana is elevated in importance because they all share a similar tie there, and so this cut provides that. And again, it's a small thing added to the thing, but it's relevant, and I thought it was cool. They should have kept that stuff, and then maybe some of that little Katana stuff that was cut out.
Katana's cool,
just for that express purpose. But
I like Katana.
This is a movie that
this is one that I can get people not liking,
right?
Because it is so stylized and.
I sure so can. I mean, this movie was pretty awesome to me.
I for one, I love the I should say I really liked the theatrical cut.
Yeah.
And
when we had two Guardians thing, I can see people not liking it. What I meant to say is I can see people not everybody liking it. I still think the freaking Rotten Tomatoes is insane.
It's bullshit.
How low it is.
I mean, there's movies on there that are higher than that don't even deserve to be on that goddamn list.
Hell yeah.
But
so I can see that, but at this point it was just it's DC. Let's freaking tear into it.
Now, going back to the movie itself, I didn't have a drive to see it theatrically, and that's a shame, unfortunately, because it really was from what I saw in the extended cut, it was really a movie that I can really enjoy watching. I was really into it. I was really into the climax of it. Everything was just cool about it, in my opinion. It had some parts where it did kind of slow down a little bit, exposition and everything, and everything else. But I enjoy those kinds of parts. I enjoy story when it comes to storytelling, as long as it's done properly, like it was in this film.
That's something to note, that the way story and character development is delivered is kind of intermingled with this high-paced action oriented film. So it's very different in terms of its delivery of that, but it's there.
I want to say the action is not amazing, but it's cool enough.
It's very effective though.
Yeah,
it's not like mind blowing, building, shifting, and everything, but it's effective in what it needs to do.
Yeah,
it's effective in.
It doesn't feel like it goes to ludicrous lengths to be cool. You know, what I mean? It's just kind of there and it's cool.
Series?
Yeah, it's very much a visual film in terms of action. It's more about how it looks, not how it ultimately,
like how many dudes go
comes
down
out.
Or whatever.
A good example is that when Deadshot takes down basically an entire army on his own. There's nothing fancy or amazing about that cut. In fact, it's basically just showing him with a few shots of intercut and of the people going down.
And not only that, but they interspliced the amazement of the soldiers behind him, and they kind of just lowered their weapons, like, okay, I'll just let him take care of it.
Right.
And it didn't need to show him kicking ass. You knew it was happening because the soldiers were just amazed. Yeah. That was really cool.
It's not like over the top, like he's not going through a line and freaking like snipering it, which would have been cool. But in this movie, this works.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty of it. This movie, in terms of its place in the DC universe. And this is where I think the movie, this is something I think that people ignore a lot, and it's that it does continue the thematics established in the previous two films. The most overwhelming being that of gods and men, which is
something DC's been pushing for.
Man of Steel was centered around that. Superman versus Batman was that.
And Justice God Among Us, all these comic lines that are gods among us, basically.
I don't know if the reaction to this film, which was somewhat negative on the critical level, is gonna cause them to abandon this plot line. I hope not.
I don't think so.
But
because like I said, it's something they've been pushing for so long.
Yeah, but
they know that people who actually follow the comics, not just say they do, can see that they've been doing that. You know what I mean?
Like in a perfect universe, all this would lead to Kingdom Come. I mean, I know that's ambitious, and I don't think it will. But in a perfect universe, this God versus men, the rise of the metahumans, all this stuff leads to a futuristic, kind of like the equivalent of MCU's Infinity War, only with DC being Kingdom Come. I could see that happening, and I hope they don't abandon it. I don't think they will. No. I mean, because their next movie is Wonder Woman, who is literally basically a god. But the theme
what's great in this movie, they go to the God thing so quick.
Yeah, but see, the thing is,
the
weird part is it was ignored, like it was in Superman versus Batman. How the fuck do you ignore it there? I don't understand. But it was ignored here too, like across the board. It's very rare that I hear it mentioned, even though literally, Enchantress and her brother are basically gods. I mean, they're not gods; they're interdimensional beings, but they were like, you know, they were kind of like Anne Rice's vampires. At one point, they were gods to humans, and now they're fucking pissed. And then it has that theme continuing into it, and the other theme is, of course, that the interaction of, or I should say, the response towards this metahuman effect, and you know, the idea that these metahumans are uncontrollable. And then here we have the real villain of the show, Amanda. This bitch basically who's in charge of putting this team together, and her ego, her drive is that she can control the uncontrollable. This metahuman wave is happening. It's there to stay, and she thinks she can control a god basically, or gods in this context. But those themes continue into this film, and you know, I hope. I mean, there's something that happens at the end of the film. If you haven't seen it, well, then I guess you stop right here. But, you know, basically Enchantress does away with a majority of the world's military power. I'm interested to see if they carry that out. They may or may not.
Some of those shots were added in, too.
Yeah, because if she did away with a vast portion of the world's military might, then literally we're at the beck and call of these gods now. So I'm interested to see how much of these extended versions are going to actually affect the film, and that's a big problem. Just release the extended versions already. Superman versus Batman was such a colossal difference, such a magnificent film in its extended cut, that you wonder what the hell they were thinking, and how do they expect their audience, all of their audience, to follow that full cut.
Well, in a way I see it, because at this point it's going to get hated no matter what. So in a business sense, I could see them trying to cut it, especially because it was so long, the Batman versus Superman. But that was not the movie to cut.
At all.
That was shit that, like, all the shit that was cut, you needed.
Yeah.
And it adds to it. This one, I can forgive it a little more. But, yeah, they got to stop listening to people who are just crying about some changes happening. Like, you ignore that in Marvel movies. It's a completely different characters being completely different. You ignore that.
Yeah.
But you can't change. Oh, Batman might have ran over someone even though he killed like 50,000 dudes in the 90s movie that you blow. What the flip?
Let's get to the nitty-gritty. Suicide Squad Extended Edition. Just a quick recap. Not a lot changed from theatrical, so if you didn't like that, pretty much you're going to be on the same boat. Although the substance added with Harley and the Joker was pretty integral and should have been in the original theatrical cut. The rest of the stuff is pretty much, you know, we're glad that it's there, but we could see why it was cut, you know, for timing reasons or what have you. But overall, the response was positive. What's your final score for Suicide Squad Extended Edition?
I'm going to give it an actual score, like 9 out of 10.
Okay. Guntik?
I'll give it better than most Marvel movies out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, man, I'm going to give it a solid...
I should say funner than Marvel. Maybe not better.
I'll give it a solid, like, 8.5 out of 10. You know, I do have... It's not that I have an issue with the pacing. I do believe I would have loved just a slightly slower, more slower boil to the events. But that's just because I want to spend more time with the characters.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's
really,
not a negative thing.
Yeah, really, it's kind of done just to get you to the conflict. You know,
right.
Once it gets to the conflict, it does slow down. But that first bit can be a little off-putting.
Right. So anyway, that's our impressions of the just released Suicide Squad Extended Edition. I mean, it's been out on digital for a while, but we waited till this hard digital media release.
Yeah.
To release this. Tell us what you think. I know a lot of people disagree. I know a lot of people agree.
Okay.
What's up? This has been Ahab, the Guardian, and Guntik signing out.